Hello everyone and welcome to Third Kits for All Part 3. And yeah, here we are once again on a screen recording software because I still don't have a new capture card yet, but that's coming soon. Anyway, I'm going to be covering these with the actual card pictures, so that'll be interesting and a bit different, but it'll be the same kind of discussion as before. And once again, if you want to find the link to the actual cards themselves along with the rest of the thread, you can find them in the description and the pinned comment of this video, so please go check them out. Anyway, this is the next set of 4 weapons. This is Sheldon's Picks Volume 2, Part 2, and we have 4 more weapons to discuss, and these are actually some of my favorites here. This is the Tactical Carbon Roller, and it comes with Fizzy Bomb and Ultra Stamp. One of the strongest possible kits in the game, but also something that's really interesting to pair with Carbon. Now, in my patch video, I actually didn't buff Carbon at all, and that's because I think Carbon is actually a pretty strong main weapon, and I think its main problem is kits. While it could see some buffs, that's another topic. I wanted to give it a really good kit, and that was actually a lot harder than I thought, because, well, it doesn't have the ability to get a burst bomb anymore. So I had to start thinking what sub I wanted to give it. Now originally I thought of doing curling, but A, that's too similar to vanilla roller with the theme I'm going for this weapon, and B, I wanted to give it a good sub, like a really good one. So I ended up giving it Fizzy Bomb. With sub power up or even without, you can still throw it and follow it kind of like a curling bomb. So I think it would still work really well. And it gives it a bomb to pressure and paint with when it's outside of its range, since Fizzy really helps for being in the neutral. And that could also help it get its special, which is Ultra Stamp. One of the strongest specials right now, especially with the 4.9 patch, nerfing the 2 strongest specials right now. I think it's going to be really interesting to have that kind of special. It could help its aggressiveness and just overall allow it to be a very frontlining weapon, since it now has an option to go in even further if the main weapon starts being a little out of range or if it just needs some kind of help. It'll have a special that can help it go further. And pretty low points for special considering it has Fizzy Bomb will allow it to actually have a good chunk of Ultra Stamps. So I think this would be a solid high tier pick. I'm not sure how far it could go depending on how the meta shifts, but I think overall it'd be a really nice close range option that could help utilize Hammer in a much different way than the current weapons that are good enough Hammer have with it. I think it's a really interesting kit for it. Strength-wise, it still would be really good at killing, and the kit helps it in so many different ways, but it is still really short range, so it would have a lot harder time on longer maps, and doesn't really have too many tools to deal with long distance besides Fizzy Spam. But it'd be interesting to see how this would work. And yeah, that's my design on it. Or kit for it, I suppose. The design was actually made by someone else, which again you can find in the Twitter thread. Anyway, the next one is the Seaside Tri Slosher, which is modeled after kind of like a bucket on a beach. You know, something like a sand pail, so with that kind of beach color and a wave. Anyway, the Seaside Tri Slosher comes with Fizzy Bomb once again and Inkjet. And Inkjet is going to be an interesting one along with Fizzy, but I wanted to give it another kind of interesting combo potential. And once again, like Carbon, it was hard to find a sub that I could combo with. The 2 subs I debated on were Torpedo and Fizzy Bomb, and I ended up going with Fizzy Bomb since after discussing with a few Tri players, it was found that Fizzy Bomb was actually quite popular for a sub and Inkjet quite popular for a special. Inkjet was going to happen anyway because no Slosher has Jet for some reason, so giving it Inkjet would be a nice kind of sort of aggressive option, sort of spacing option it could have, and I think it'd pair well with it. On top of that, Fizzy's really good for comboing with the Slosh if opponents are slightly weak. A Slosh does 62, and the Fizzy just rolled real quick will do 35, and that'll leave them with about 97 damage. So if they're even slightly weak, that could perhaps kill them, and that could be really interesting to combo with it. And it just given another nice movement option since it's a short-range weapon, and something to poke with in neutral. This is really similar to Carbon in the end, but I think the main weapon's still a good deal worse. But if Tri were to be buffed a bit to be a more solid weapon, I think this could be an interesting kit. It's just kind of hard to give it a third kit with the idea of, well, Vanilla Tri is one of the best kits in the game. But I think overall it's a nice kind of new theme and playstyle option it has, which is something I did try to go with for this. Now we're going to get into the 2 weapons that I think are the top tiers if they were to exist in the game. First one is the Nautilus X. Now this kit, all of these kits have a theme. They're not just tried to be the best kit, though some of them do come with that in mind. This kit's theme was to be based off the original Alt Nautilus kit, because originally the second Nautilus, its very first Datamine kit it had was Curling Bomb Armor. That changed to Splat Bomb Armor, and then Suction Bomb Inkjet when they murdered it for some reason. But anyway, I think it should get Curling Bomb armor because that's a really strong kit for it. And I think it'd be really interesting to see, first of all, a short-range splatting with armor kind of gives that Splat 1 mini vibes with Bubble, though obviously nowhere near the same degree. And second, Nautilus is a really strong weapon that hasn't really gotten the chance to have a good kit. And I think this is a kit that would sync with it perfectly, since curling can help put more pressure and perhaps help if you have a charge ready, but overall could still be kind of useful since you don't need to have the full charge before swimming through. And armor would be an amazing supportive aggressive special that could help Nautilus move in, and it doesn't really suffer from the weakness of armor exposing your position because you're always going to be having a glow on you anyway. So that's kind of a nice touch. In the end, I think a kind of shorter range splatting with armor similar to Mini was a theme I wanted to go with anyway for Nautilus, and giving it a kit that it used to have anyway that would have been a lot better is great. Overall, I just really do miss the fact that this was supposed to be the kit it was going to get, and I really want to see Nautilus with a good kit. So yeah, that's a kind of interesting design, kind of like a Weapon X thing. And lastly, what's arguably the best weapon and got a lot of reception for perhaps being too strong, possibly even more than the Brella or X-Slosher or E-Liter kits. E-Liter was way overhyped for whatever reason. But anyway, Swift Tetras are an interesting one. They're Swift Tetra dualies modeled just a bit with a faster design. The stars on it are kind of reminiscing of the Pokemon move Swift, since that's with stars, if anyone plays Pokemon here. But the Swift Tetra dualies are basically a better kit for Tetra, since Tetra has two weak kits. But in the end, I wanted to give it a kit that would really sync with its issues and with its strengths, and allow it to capitalize it on just this hyper-aggressive frontline weapon that would constantly be in your face 24/7. So I gave it the T-Tech kit. Now, it would play a bit differently to T-Tech since T-Tech can't be as aggressive as this. Tetra paints a lot worse, but is much more of a frontline with its potential. Splat Bomb would be a good sub for just poking and trying to get in. A bit of tick damage is always helpful for it, but really, Tetra lacks a solid sub for what it can do. Sprinkler is nice, but it's more made for a support weapon. It's not really going to be too useful for a weapon that can't paint. And Auto Bomb's just not that good of a sub right now. But I think Splat Bomb would be a really nice kind of poking mix it could have, just as a way to try to open up approaches for it. And then Inkjet would be probably the best thing it could get, really, besides a really good special. I didn't want to give it that good of a special, honestly. I wanted to give it a kind of mid to high tier special that's like has potential for it. While Inkjet isn't too strong, well, paired with this kind of aggressive playstyle, I think it would sync really well. And on top of the fact that, well, obviously, it's going to be pretty hard to camp its jump with all those dodge rolls. I think it'd be really interesting. N-Parry and T-Tech are both kind of similar to this, but I think this would be much more aggressive than the other two, and it'd force a really interesting playstyle. Because of how bad Tetra's paint and supportive capabilities are, along with the fact that none of its kits are really good at support to the degree of carrying it, since that wouldn't be a good kit anyway, I think this kit would be the ultimate kit for it overall, and would force people to really try to push how far you could frontline with such an insane main weapon. Because the main weapon's one of the best in the game for frontline, people really try to push it aggressively, and I think it'd be really nice to see just how far the main weapon could truly be pushed. So, that's the kind of theme I wanted to go for it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in another video.